much for your time. I know how busy you are, and I really, really appreciate that you've taken half an hour out of your day to have a chat with me about our I Am Tourism campaign and who you are and how you are involved in tourism. So perhaps let's start with that. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? How did you get into tourism?
Good morning, Natalia. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Nomvuselelo. As you know, I grew up in the rural outskirts of Transkei in a village called Tsilitwa in Qumbu. I got involved into tourism, in particular when I was working for South African National Parks, managing the park system. And I also got exposed into tourism development outside the park systems when I was working as a Chief Operations Officer in the Eastern Cape Parks and Tourism Agency. So that's basically how I got involved into tourism.
And did you always think you were going to get involved in tourism when you were growing up?
No, not actually. You know, I always refer to my career as it's not a career ladder. I've been jumping from one field to the other, from academia to environmental education, from environmental education, conservation, and now into tourism. So I never actually thought that I would be in tourism.
So what is that passion that you have, and how does it link up to how you eventually did get into tourism?
For me, I think the whole issue is about really people. It's about exploring, it's about learning, it's about discovering places. And I think that is actually even how my career panned out. I like to be involved in challenging situations. I'm very comfortable to actually not know. And that's the reason why I got even to the job that I am in at this point in time. So being in tourism connected me again with the people, and mostly with the people in the rural areas, and which really talks to my passion around transformation issues. I'm very passionate about talking to the underdogs, and actually working with the people to actually discover the strength they have within, which I really think this is how I became as an individual, so I would really like to most of the time engage with people who really think that they can't add value, but they don't realize the value they have and the contribution they can make in not only in tourism, but in general as human beings.
I love that. And I love the fact that tourism is one of those industries where you can do that. You don't need to have a degree, although I know you have many, but you don't need to have a degree to work in tourism and to be tourism, essentially. So what would you say to someone who just didn't think that tourism was something that they could get into? How would you encourage them and say, well, look into it and start getting involved?
Natalia, I think tourism, and I always used to even argue about conservation, is that we tend to actually glorify these industries. But if you really think about tourism, it's hospitality. Everybody else, wherever they are in their own households, they are never taught about how to be hospitable. And that is who we are. And that's the reason why you actually find that when we promote our countries, we more focus on the diversity and how hospitable our people are, because by nature, our cultural heritage and the people, the diverse cultures we have, And the people that you engage with as you traverse throughout the country, even if they haven't gone to school, they know how to treat people. They know how to make good food. They know how to look after visitors, because this is something that we grew up, that is inherent to each and every person. But obviously, when we really have to professionalize them, what we then need to do is to adopt and adapt other values and other skills that we can incorporate to actually what we know. I mean, I can tell you now, even if you take visitors to any other destination in the country, you will find that you can be excited by engaging people, either old people or youth that haven't gone to school, and you learn from them just because they are people. Is just this connection that we really need to enhance all the time. So for me, that is how I am really looking at tourism, and it's really inviting people to say, as a country, we know that if we have visitors, it doesn't matter if it's from another province or it's international visitors, we can actually leverage by having more people that can harness the economy in the country, and we can actually make money out of that. And this is what we have to do. We have to be creative and look at ways that we would be able to make money for ourselves, to feed our children, and be innovative even at local level, without waiting for either government or associations to give us funding to do that. We can be innovative in our own small areas.
Exactly, looking at what we have at our disposal and how we can leverage what we already have. You've touched on it a little bit, but perhaps you'd unpack it for me a little bit more. You know, we often see tourism as this nice to have, and you've just explained this, the ability that it has to create connection. Why should tourism be taken as seriously as any other industry like mining or manufacturing? Should it be taken as seriously, or is it something that's softer and perhaps not doesn't need to be given the same serious consideration as those very important industries like mining, for example?
It should be taken seriously. All of us know that tourism is the heartbeat of any country. You know, in South Africa, it's our selling point, and how we actually welcome the people. People from all over the world into our shores. And we know that we have a richness in culture, the heritage, and nice places that we can actually visit and be excited about and experience the landscape that we have never experienced before. I mean, you can go to Kgalagadi today, and you meet probably the Nama people there. It will be a different experience if you go to, let's say, Limpopo, and you meet even the Pedi people over that side, and the Tswana people. The same way, if you go to KZN, you will be able to do that. And I think for me, why it should be taken serious is that a lot of people are actually feeding their families from the activities, the services that they do for tourism. Tourism can be academically and economically defined, and I'm just going to leave that to the people who know best. But what I think is most important, for instance, for the work that I do at this point in time, where the company that was established now called Jurni is actually looking at how we can collect data, that is going to be reliable, and that is going to be that we are all going to be confident on, in terms of responding to the questions that you are asking. You and me now, today, if you are asking me what were the trends in terms of the performance of tourism, you will probably give me different information than someone else. If you are asking me, for instance, about the projections, you'll probably give me different information, and so on and so on. So what we are really trying to do is to put together the data hub that is going to provide these insights for all of us to be able to convey a convincing message to the decision makers about the impact of tourism. And I think for us, this is how we are going to really add value into the tourism industry. Obviously, as I am saying, is that some of the things, when we look at the tourism we just look at probably like the visitors that are coming in to the country, inbound and outbound tourism, but we forget that tourism is really transversal. We have got sports tourism, we've got religious tourism, medical tourism, edu-tourism. I mean, the events and conferences and cultural tourism is part of the mix. But if you're really looking at that value chain, you can imagine how many jobs are created out of tourism. And the little mama and dada that are selling small, let's say, amagwinyas at the corner next to a stadium, they are actually generating income. That's creating employment. And what's happening is that they are feeding their own children, they are educating their own children, and the economy is actually going, at a micro level, contributing to a macro level, and that is how tourism is contributing to the country. You can see, for instance, what has happened now in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic effects that has happened. Everything just went down. That's starting from airlines, it's starting from to restaurants, to accommodation, tour guiding, and all of us are affected. And if we can have data that could really talk to you about what the real impact of COVID is, we would be able to answer that question confidently to yourself.
That's such an incredible insight about the value chain of tourism, and how you wouldn't think that certain things are tourism, but they are tourism. And if we just look at ourselves, and Nomvusi, you and I run a communications company that supports the tourism industry, but normally you would look at me and you wouldn't say I am tourism, but I am tourism. And we would look at you and we would say, here you have this amazing data driven company. It sits so firmly in the technology space, but it's there as support for the tourism industry. So you are tourism as well. And I think that's the thing, is to try and get South Africans to understand that in some way or another, they all do tourism, or they all are tourism. Is that something that you would agree with?
No, exactly. I mean, that's exactly the point. We always say, Natalia, if you go, for instance, to Sandton, and you see people that are shopping there in Sandton, you don't really take the spend of the, how much they spend in retail and translate it into tourism. All what you will focus on is you focus on the events that they have attended. I was talking to one of the association CEOs who was saying, the business event, unfortunately, is not incorporated into tourism as well. All what we do, we will probably say, okay, how many people have come into this particular event, how many people attended, and we go to accommodation. But what we also don't look at is in the indirect impact on, what jobs were created when people were coordinating that event. the people that were putting those exhibitions in there, that's a contribution to tourism. The people that were assisting into putting lights on, and all those companies that came on board to exhibit it, that is an impact of that particular event. And that is why it becomes very difficult sometimes to quantify it.
Tell me about your hopes. You mentioned lockdown and the impact that it's had. What are your greatest hopes for Jurni and for the tourism industry once we are fully reopened?
My hopes, Natalia, is that as an industry, I think we learn from our past mistakes, and all the webinars that we have been listening through in the tourism industry have actually mentioned that we really need to forget about some of the negative noises that are coming up and focus on doing what we do best. We make it a point that we make this country a better place for all of us to live, enjoy, and be proud of. And let's provide solutions that will benefit all of us. As we are, as I have alluded to, what we do as Jurni, for instance, as part of collecting data into the centralized data hub, is we are putting up a booking tool that is going to profile some of the small players that were not profiled digitally into the global market before, and it has been coming out as part of these discussions that we really need to collaborate more, whether we are a large player or an established player or a small player in the tourism industry. In particular, now that we are focusing more on the tourism, domestic tourism, we really need to be working together and make this place a better place, tourism in particular. So we really need to write a pioneering story of our land and let other nations learn from how we have recovered. If you think of Niza, you remember Niza, there was a fire in Niza, and everybody else was up in arms and very sad about the fires that happened. But what emerged is that out of that adversity, there were opportunities that were created. And this is exactly what we really need to do. Yes, there are things that we cannot control that have happened, but what we need to do now is that we have to take a lead and lead by an example and show our customers that they are in safe hands when they travel coming to South Africa. We are not no longer going to be selling travel to South Africa, but we have to sell the travel safe experiences to our customers. And that should be our selling point, and that is what the customers are going to be really looking at. And I also just hoping that the owners, business owners themselves, are going to really have enough courage to take that opportunity and march forward. We have to fail fast, and make sure that we leverage the opportunities that we have, leverage the partnerships that we have. We even reach out and strengthen the relationships that we have, not only as the tourism and the industry, but also as individuals, because we can rise as a collective.
You actually this idea of travel safe versus just travel is so insightful, and my whole universe has been around safety protocols over the last 2 months, but I've never heard it uttered so eloquently. And so I'm going to steal the travel safe from you, if that's okay. What would you say to other women in tourism? So you've spoken about opportunity and seeing opportunity. What could you say to other women in tourism to motivate them to look for that opportunity when maybe some of them are feeling that there just isn't any hope?
Natalia, I was just saying, COVID-19 has happened. It's probably going to be with us for maybe some few months or years. It was out of control. No one planned for it. We have suffered. throughout the last few months, emotionally, financially, spiritually, and otherwise. And you know, some women in particular suffered physically. We have heard how the gender-based violence increased over the last few months. But what we need to do is to step out of the denial and accept that today, tomorrow, something is going to happen again that is unplanned and devastating. That's reality. There's nothing we can do about it. This is about life. Life is about managing the pain, personally, professionally, or politically. That's basically what it is. The problem that we have is always we really shy away from dealing with the hardness. It becomes very difficult. But the bigger the storm, you should know that the bigger will be also the rainbow. So what we need to do is to just manage life as it comes our way. We'll not get it from government, from neighbors, from the associations. Without pain, we will never succeed. And for me, what my message to everyone, not only women, I think our families, our children, is just we have to accept, we embrace the pain, the loss, the death that has come, but realize that this is the time for us to use the power within us. We have the power that propelled us to do what we are doing. You know, if you have a small business or if you had a big company, there is passion within you that propelled you to start that business. So you have been here before, and one time or the other, something is going to happen. In fact, one of my colleagues had posted something that, and I think it's something that you know about women, the strength of the women. You know, it's like a tea bag. You know, how will you actually know how strong women are? Is you put them in boiling water. You know, so the women are really the pillars of home. And there's no amount of relief funds, no amount of words, no grandstanding in podiums that will give back the power that we have. So suffering makes us who we are. So this is the time to emerge even stronger than you were before. And let's march on.
So now that we are seeing the reopening of our tourism economy and our country, where is the first place you are going to travel safely?
You know, I actually want to really travel home. I would love to go and see my family, my ailing mother in the Eastern Cape, and just be there and absorb the, you know, that rural air and the grass and walk there, and also just travel and see my family that is in PE as well. And obviously my always a nice place to go to is the national parks. I grew up there professionally, so I always like find peace, and connecting with nature is something that really revives my spirit and soul.